Prime Minister James Marape, it's an absolute honour to sit here with you and have a bit of a chat. Thank you for covering all of those important issues. But a question on my mind and a lot of people in the room is, have you met with Peter V'landys or anyone from the NRL about PNG becoming the 18th team?
Peter is a very kind man, and he's basically allowed us to put a business case through without preempting the outcome of the due process. He's giving us a fair consideration. For us, it's not just rugby league, but it's a nation-building strategy. In a nation of so much diversity, and I'm speaking to a family of sponsors right here, whether they're provincial governments or investors. For us, it's a nation-building strategy. In a nation of so much diversity, politics divide, churches also sometimes divide. They're supposed to unite, but they also divide. Our tribal affiliations divide. But in rugby league, we find unity. Just like the Nelson Mandela strategy that united South Africa beyond rugby union. For us, it's not just rugby league, but it's one sport, one team, one country concept.
My husband will be very happy to hear about that. On the defence deal with the US and then in the last couple of days, the security deal with Australia, how does industry and people in this room benefit from those two agreements?
You know, as investors, security is the biggest consciousness in the mind. Whether it's fiscal security or security of the agreement we've signed, and I spoke a fair deal about security and giving them confidence. The two agreements we've signed with the US DCA, that's basically our external territorial sovereignty, border security. As a nation, we must have strong defense force, policing our 5,000 square kilometers, 5 million square kilometers of sea borders, and of course, making sure our defense are okay to defend our sovereignty. And so that's the US space. And with Australia, I just want to appreciate their patience. We worked through, it's not a product that emerged overnight when I arrived in Canberra. I want to acknowledge our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister Justin Tshichenko, Minister assisting me. Have worked over time with their counterparts in Canberra. It was an exchange that went back and forth to ensure we pick on a space where we felt was very important. Domestic security, internal security is a big issue. Minister Semaleli is sitting here with me. He was also witness to the final signing. These two are complementary. External security with the USA and internal security with Australia. That includes, we've uplifted for 20 more new judges to come in. I've told them, please spend the money in hiring the judges for us. I want more judges so that courts are being dispensed with, so we don't have cases like the Wafi Golpu sitting because a judge is doing his second. In the last 1 year, we've lifted the ceiling for a judge to go up to 200 judges in our Supreme Court and National Court. Our own government has allocated more than ever before. We've tripled the size of allocation to the law and justice sector space. But even at that rate of assisting the law and justice sector, including judiciary, magisterial services, anti-corruption, police, and CIS, it will take me about 10 to 15 years to fully stock up capacity in my police, CIS, courts, and anti-corruption. So we work with them in the domestic security. So the 400 of almost 500 million kina envelope gets to, in a big way, we will open up a training facility in Bomana to take up to 1,000 police training a time, new judges, new magistrates, correctional service, step up, all in the interest of assisting my government, matching our own investment in ensuring domestic security is stepped up also. I guess the investors know they spend a lot in security, and government is also sometimes under pressure to maintain security. It's something that is a great concern of our country, and so we're not resting back. We're working. Australia taxpayers may ask, why is it that we're spending money up north? Well, first thing first, before 75, we were the same country. Before 75, we had one passport, the Australian passport. After 75, we became our own country. I just shared with you the history of our GDP, the size of our economy, very small at the time. We're still growing. The needs are bigger, what we have is smaller. And so Australia government remains a great support to us in its latest round of intervention in the domestic security, internal security. I thought it's fitting. many Australian investors. In fact, Papua New Guinea remains a country where has the biggest density of Australian investors, externally speaking. So it also goes to secure the investors who are operating in the economy. So win-win all around. Australian taxpayers win because their companies in PNG are a better place. And at the end of the day also, as a common joke I say in Canberra these days, if PNG becomes a failed state, you don't have to worry about boats coming afar off. You'll have canoes of half-blooded Torres Strait Islanders in PNG paddling down into Australia. So it's in our shared interest to ensure PNG is a better place.
On security, both the Solomons and Vanuatu have inked deals with China. Would you rule out something like that in the future, given the deals with Australia and the US?
We have been transparent, we have been open. I was given very big welcome in Beijing when I visited Beijing. At no time in my visit to Beijing, and there were ministers with me in those meetings, there was no conversation on security. I told Asian investors in Hong Kong and I told Chinese investors in Beijing that your investment in PNG is safe because I am getting the best security assistance to ensure Papua New Guinea is safe. So we keep them in the space of economy, and we work with our traditional security partners in the space of security. All covered, friends to all, enemies to none remain. All foreign relations to PNG appreciate the space, and we work with respect on each other.
You mentioned COP28 before. The PNG government recently signed a country package agreement on the sidelines in Dubai with the French government. What's your message to investors in PNG?
Well, that's an indication that the world is hearing. My first conversation at the United Nations in 2019 has been that your conversation on climate change is totally redundant, with no effort in forest conservation or forest resource management. That was the first time I spoke publicly. I've asked those who have big carbon footprint globally, whether at the nation level or at industry levels, that their contribution to climate change upkeep must commensurate basically their carbon footprint. And I'm happy that France is a big economy, G7 economy, G20 economy. President Emmanuel Macron and the France as a whole has emerged as a big partner to forest nations. Those in the Congo region of Africa and those in the Amazon basin of South America, and of course the Southeast Asia basin. Papua New Guinea is a substantial part of that space. Our forests need to be conserved. No one's shutting down the coal use power plants. We still, the economic sort of activity threshold remains at the same level. And so the nature in itself can assist, mitigate, and my conversation has been, let's preserve our forestry. Or let's manage our forestry in a sustainable manner. And so friends coming in, firstly with the $100 million assistance to us to map out and conserve certain areas in our country that want to conserve forestry. We will do a forestry as well as a biodiversity map. And later on, as I did indicate earlier, I may go to the industries here to have a little bit of forest as part of the area that they want to reforest our forest or conserve so that their carbon footprints are offset. So going forward into the future, we want to be a green country. We're already green, but we are amplifying that identity. We are a forest nation, we're a green nation. You can invest in us, your carbon footprint is totally offset, removed. You're safe to stay with us. And I did not make mention. We're also looking at, in the next 10 years, move to hydro energy as a major source of energy source domestically. So France is hitting and using France and the French leadership presence in G7 and G20 meetings. That message has been running through now. You cannot just speak on climate change and keeping temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius without preserving the carbon sinks of planet Earth in its natural state.
Beyond the beautiful green sinks and your wonderful country in preserving the forests, this morning Australia's Climate Change Minister told COP28 that the use of fossil fuels in energy production must end, and your own Environment Minister reminded world leaders that, quote, the era of global boiling has arrived. To be clear, do you support calls for the phase out or the phase down of fossil fuels?
My country is in the oil and gas business. Lucky for me, we have that big forest and ocean to offset. But we belong to one planet. We must be cognizant to the upkeep of the planet. And my commentary is the same. Those who hold big carbon footprints must take the lead. And most of them are now living an affluent life. You cannot live an affluent life at the expense of those of us who want to emerge. We must all grow together. And we cannot compromise our own emergence. Anything else, my sister? You don't want to.
Look, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to talk to you, Prime Minister.
Thank you
so much for coming today and on the security deal. And I understand, as you mentioned, you are coming back in February to address both Houses of Parliament. First time it's happened, I think, since Joko Widodo in 2020. So congratulations. Thank you so much. James Marape.